Dusty, and welcome again to my art channel. This is the second version of my last video, which basically was just me drawing in real time. This version is the one that will have the commentary. And I will be talking about basically the tools that I use, how I use them, and basically what I think about while I'm using them on the illustrations and whatnot that I'm inking. I usually use microns, the G pen, the pitt pen, or anything I can fill in blacks with, and obviously some type of whiteout. I usually begin inking with my microns, and usually I go for my faces first. The only reason I use my microns on my faces is because I'm not as confident with my G pen. One day maybe I'll get really confident and get used to using my G pen on something as delicate as the face, but here and there I just have more confidence with my microns. Since I think that the line width variation is it's easier with the G pen, but I think since my confidence gets a little shot here and there, I can't keep consistency with the face sometimes, and it's a very important part of the face, so you don't want to mess up as much. So one day when I get better with the G pen, I'll just transfer over to it. And sometimes I do hair with the microns. Sometimes I prefer the G pen and the type of liveliness the line gets from using the G pen. Method and the way that I do my artwork. Yours may vary depending on your style or your own comfort zone with your own type of tools. These are just the tools that I use and the way I think about using them. So always bear that in mind. Basically like to go around the outside, the outline of the figure. I don't try to focus on filling in blacks very often because it changes how you usually go about adding lines. Like, you know, if you're just adding lines, you never have to stop and think about, you know, filling in blacks or anything. You just keep going with that flow, and you know, you use that as like a method to continuously do better lines that way, instead of breaking concentration and starting to add black and whatnot. Yeah, I start to use the G pen a little bit later, like right now, instead of using the microns, because I feel like it does really help liven up lines. And I guess you always want to have your main character look a little bit more livelier than the other characters sometimes. Definitely when it's an action sequence and they aren't just standing there, they're actually doing something. As you can kind of see, I spin the paper around a lot during the video, and it is because, you know, your arm has a certain degree in which that it moves the best, and mine moves a certain way with certain types of strokes that I'm trying to do. So I spin the paper to try and get the best line that I can on the paper. So that's always a good tip to remind yourself about. So always try and spin the paper so that it's easy for your arm to move to hit the line correctly the way you're trying to hit it. I'm going to speed this part up so I can get to my next point, so bear with me. lightest areas when I usually take out my markers on the pitt pen, and I usually start filling in my dark areas with full black. You usually wait until I feel like the figure's about done. Figure's about done, adding lines to it and everything, or at the end of a panel at the most, before I crack open a marker and start filling in blacks. It just helps me focus on just creating good line art until I feel like adding, the black, sometimes the shadows or, fully blackened areas. I feel like that type of motion is pretty easy. It doesn't really, you don't need to really think too hard when you're adding, a full color to anything. You just need to stay within the lines. So I try to keep away from that thought process until the possible end. About the glove and the paper. Um, if you draw, you know that your hand can easily smear what you've drawn. And even though I have drawn in blue pencil, um, my lines will probably still smear. So I make sure that doesn't happen because you have like natural oils on your hand. Even when your hand's clean, that helps smear pencil of any kind on your paper and takes things out of focus. So I place a piece of paper over top of my artwork that I'm about to ink. And I wear that glove. The glove that I'm wearing is just something I got from the corner store, but basically it helps me to glide across the paper that I've placed on top of my artwork to make better, longer lines. So that's basically what that helps me do. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a nice glove you could buy that doesn't actually smear, but I like to do it this way anyway. It works for me. Maybe I'll get the other glove later. Alright, so the last bit of information I've got for you guys, as you can see, I'm starting to add whiteout around the end, since I did some speed lines in the hair. Of course, I'm not perfect, so sometimes some of the speed lines go out of where I want them to go. So of course I have to white out these areas, and if any lines, aren't the way I want them to be, it's time to get them out of there and do my last bit of line work to the figure before I move on. Alright, so I'm starting again, starting with the face with the microns, this character, and then as you can kind of see from the sketch, there are some speed lines on that guy, and if you wait a second, you'll see there's speed lines on this guy's hand that I'm drawing on now. And basically, I can pretty much do good speed lines with both the G pen and the microns. I kind of just fluctuate back and forth between whether or not I feel like using one or the other. Of course, the microns are just easier, but the other one just has more lively lines, so sometimes I take a chance and sometimes it works out. Sometimes I use them in combination to create some pretty nicely done effects. This scene was fairly simple. I had to split them up composition wise for them to fit the right way so that I could tell the story properly. I'm not going to get into those things yet, right now in this video anyway. This video is mostly about me inking these characters, these double page spread. Yeah, as you can see, I'm using the microns in order to do the speed lines, and basically, I guess the trick for those is to go back and forth between, like, you want to go all the way to the end of what you're trying to use, and then you want to go back to the front and make the front kind of heavier so that the back looks like it's moving, I guess, later. The front's moving forward before everything else, and the back part's moving later. So it creates an interesting effect that way. And I was pretty happy with, I guess, where I was with his figure, and I just jumped ahead and added the black to his scarf. And there's a pretty interesting mistake, I would call it, on his neck. I don't really like how that line basically looks like it flattens out his figure. It doesn't help the detail with that line being as dark as the scarf. So we'll probably have to fix that later. The pants in this area are one of my favorite things because, well, we're not going to get to that yet. I'm still working on the shirt. More speed lines. I'm actually drawing and taking a video right now on my phone, trying to put something on my Instagram page or my Facebook page. You can follow me there also. I'll have a link in the description. So basically, I think the pants are next. Yeah, I'll get them. Anyway, I had to add some more lines on the shirt because I was not happy with how it was looking. It just looked too flat, so I wanted to kind of emphasize some muscle structure here and there, and where the creases and stuff would be. Add little details to the hand. And now I'll start to add the special effect speed lines and whatnot on the sleeve, and add more details to the pants. It takes a while. I wish inking was faster, but I don't think I would learn as much if it was that easy. So it's taking a long time to get as good as this, and I don't really consider myself that good, but I do enjoy drawing and inking and creating comics. And basically, as you can see, there was no lines there. I just added those out of a hunch. I try to experiment even when I'm doing my pages and stuff, not just in sketches, because I don't know, I have more fun that way. And I figured the pants came out pretty good. I like the way that effect worked, so I may do it more. I guess the only thing about experimentation is you still want to keep your general style consistency around for a while. You don't want to experiment too much unless it's a very conscious style decision. What I mean by that is obviously something like, you know, if your comic consists of like a certain type of, you know, if you use like certain textures and patterns and stuff for your backgrounds, you know, if you always use them, it becomes like a usual thing to see those things. So for you to all of a sudden take them away would mean something, I guess, in an emotional sense. If you're doing it consciously and you want people to realize it, either that or your style has changed. But you should never, I think, change your style too dramatically, too quickly, because people don't expect it that way because they've gotten used to your usual style. About speed lines is that, let's say you begin using your speed lines and your lines don't go all the way across the figure where you want them to end. You should really try to match up your lines. Like, you want to go to the next part where your lines didn't meet, but you want to try and make all your lines meet up with the first lines, so it almost looks like a continuous stroke. If you can do that, then it'll blend really well and it won't look out of place. Alright, it's about time for me to wrap up this video. Just remember, If you guys like this video, subscribe. I have a lot more videos on my channel. If you didn't like how small the duration of this video was, I have the full real-time video up on my channel. It's about 2 hours long, so if you have time for that, check it out. I hope the tips were helpful and that you join me next time. Thank you, and please subscribe.